flag salute.
Please stand, please rise, hand of a heart. Let's go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, an agenda review.
Madam President, if I could suggest that we take 10.6 and move it up to right after 10.0, since that presenter is here. And then the second thing I might suggest is that we are not prepared for item 10.1, so we could eliminate that item.
Okay.
Okay, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right, next, special presentations.
I don't have a superintendent's report for this meeting.
All right, and are there any public comments?
Well, I'll make a motion, we open public comment.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we close public comment.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, next, consent items 8.0 to 8.4.
Nobody wants anything pulled, I'll make a motion, we approve 8.0 to 8.4.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And then hearings and appeals.
Yeah, so these are two, both these were opened up at the last meeting, and so they just need to be closed individually by votes at this meeting.
I'll make a motion that we close public hearing on 9.0.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion that we close public hearing on 9.1.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, we will go to 10.6, voter approved funding measure, survey results presentation.
Yeah, and then just on 10.0, just a real quick one that I don't think we had anything to report out from closed session.
10.0, report out closed session, nothing?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd like to invite up Brian Moore from ISOM Advisors, and it's up to you if you want to do podium or chair, whatever you feel more comfortable at.
I'll stand up here, I guess.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for being here, Brian. We appreciate it. And Brian's going to present some survey results that we had done.
I got to say this, I think the quickest I've ever been up here from the start of a meeting. So very efficient. I love it. All right. So, and I have the clicker as well. All right. So we conducted a survey at the district's request about 2 weeks ago from June 5th through June 10th, assessing the feasibility of placing a parcel tax measure on the upcoming ballot. So your district has roughly about 45,000 registered voters, and the survey tested the voters' attitudes towards the districts, towards projects that would be funded by the measure, as well as tax tolerances. And we were able to get in touch with 400 households, which is the target in these surveys, gives you a plus and minus margin of error of roughly about 4.8%. So, and just also mind you, when I'm going through these questions, they're asked more in a random order, not in exactly the same way that they're being presented here in the presentation. So just keep that in mind. So we're just kind of getting a feel for the voters that were talked to, how they felt about the city of Brentwood and if it was headed in the right direction, yes or no. 75% said right direction. So that's a great number of people feeling like the city's going in the right direction. Asked the same thing towards the school district, the quality of education provided by Brentwood Union School District. 26% said excellent, 47% said good. That's almost 75% putting those two together, which is a phenomenal number. So the perceptions and attitudes towards the city and the school district are very, very positive. So that is a good thing. Another thing that we look at on this one, and we're looking at the graph on the right side here, is we also kind of flip this and look at the reverse. Anything less than 10 to 15% on the poor means you're also doing a very good job. If it's starting getting above that 10 to 15%, that means there's usually some sort of controversy going on. There's some issue happening below 5%, you folks are doing great. And then this was actually the last question on the survey, the connection they have to the district, whether they have grandchildren or children attending or did at some point in time or have never had any contact with the district. And it's roughly about, not exactly, but about a third in each quarter there, or in each third. And so that's great for survey purposes because it's a good demographic representation there of different kinds of contacts with the district. So next we'll move into the different aspects of Brentwood Union School District for as teachers, principals, superintendent, school board, and district finances. And you folks are looking great across the board on this. And I'd say this is pretty consistent. Teachers usually get the most love in these surveys, and then usually the finance person gets the least. And so it's usually about this order. But Diana, you are actually doing very well though, by the way. I presented at a district not too long ago, and it was at 20% for the finance person. This is district finances. So oftentimes the public doesn't view government entities spending more money very well. And the fact that you folks are above 50% is fantastic. So you're doing good things, is what this survey is saying so far. Next, we kind of want to get a pulse on perceptions for school funding and tax purposes here. So basically, this is almost kind of the same question, asked in a couple different ways to kind of make sure we're getting the right pulse here, despite how things are worded. So we asked it a couple different ways. So the first one is, because the state continues to underfund schools, do local voters need to do more to support public schools? 87% of the people said yes. That's fairly consistent with across the state and other surveys we do. And just mind you, we do surveys up and down the state throughout the year. So these are some of these things are very consistent, which is good that you're being consistent. So on the right-hand side, Brentwood School District is one of the lowest funded school districts in the state, and the support for local schools needs to be more. Only 63% people agreed with that. And so it's just kind of how things were worded compared to the 87% saying the state's not doing enough. And now this is an interesting question over here too. So it says, I would never vote for a tax increase no matter what the money is being used for. 41% of the people agreed with that statement. And where this kind of comes into play in this survey is, since the discussion is around a parcel tax, and parcel tax needs 2/3 vote to pass. So you need 66.7% to pass. So the fact that out of the gate here, 41% of the people are saying we're not interested in no matter what it's going towards, gives you pause for kind of some further investigation here. And mind you, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to stop and ask. We can make it a little bit more conversation, even though I'm at the podium here. So any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. So next, a little bit more pulse on the community and the district here. People move and stay in Brentwood because of good schools and low crime. 84% of the people said yes to that statement or agree with that. Once again, pointing to the fact that people very much support where you're at as the district and the city here. This next question, similar to the ones on the previous page, COVID funding for school is drying up and our school counselors are on the chopping block. I'd be willing to pay more to support student health and well-being. 66% of the people agree with that statement and 31% disagreed. So there's a bit of a divide here of people that are supporting, but there's still a large block of people that are anti-tax here. So then we kind of after we kind of got through most of these questions, we asked kind of a benchmark question before giving any education about the parcel tax and what it'd be used for. And you're limited to a certain amount of words that you can use legally on the ballot. And so that's in yellow here. So I'll just read that verbatim in asking this question. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Thank you. So would you be in yes in favor for the measure or no opposed to the measure if you had to vote today? And this is the question: to provide stable funding that the state cannot take away, maintain excellent academic programs in reading, writing, math, and science, attract and retain qualified teachers and staff, keep arts and music education, and protect counselors and student mental health services, shall Brentwood Union School District be authorized to levy $96 per parcel annually for 4 years with an independent citizen oversight committee, have no funds for administrator salaries, provide a senior citizen exemption, and have all funds stay locally. So out of the gate, it came in at 62.3 with 1.5 leaning yes. So that puts us at the 63.8 right out of the gate. So at this point in time, and we need 66.7 to pass the measure. So then we got into projects. So all 5 projects listed here, they're asked in random order, but are listed in most favorable to least favorable. All 5 of these received over 75% voter approval, with the top being protecting academic programs in science, math, reading, and writing, and attracting qualified teachers, retaining teachers, maintaining counselors and school mental health programs, and maintain academic programs such as art and music. All of them were above 75%, which is great. The next 3 here didn't receive as much support, but we're still above 70%, which is above the 66.7% needed. And the one that received the least amount of support would be the athletic and sports programs, but that still was above the threshold that we're looking for here. Now, with most things in life, we got one more question here. And this one's a bit interesting here as well. So they said, if you knew that senior citizens would receive a tax exemption and would not have to pay the parcel tax, would you be more or less supportive of it? And it came in at 65%, which is below the 67% roughly needed, which is slightly surprising. Usually when this question is asked, your senior citizen population is more supportive of that, knowing that they don't have to pay for that. And so it was interesting that it actually came in below the 67 number there, which could be something that may be overcome through outreach that we can talk about a little bit later here. Any questions so far? Okay. So as with anything, when we talk about an experience, very supportive. How much it costs, maybe a little bit less supportive. And so testing tax tolerance, we did what we call a split survey. So half of the people surveyed, we asked them the $120 per year question. The other half of the people, we asked them a $10 a month question. Once again, it's just kind of a perception and wording, trying to get an accurate pulse here of people's perceptions. So at $120 a year, roughly 53% of the people said yes. At $10 a month, 50% of the people said yes. So much lower than the 2/3 that we would need. But also at the 120, at both of these roughly, it was around that 40 to 45% number that people said, no, we will not support taxes either way. Next, and so we did a tax tolerance. So next 4 slides are all same number, just going down a little bit each time. And not surprising, as you tell someone it's going to cost a little bit less or a little bit more supportive. So at $96 per year, it came in at 58, and $8 a month, it came in at 52. When it came down to $72, it came in at 60%, and $6 a month came in at 71 or 61%. Still below that 2/3 number, and so we don't actually get above the 2/3 number until we get to $48 a year or $4 a month, and that put us at at 69% in both categories there.
And what would that generate?
It's about $1.1 million is what it would make.
So after looking at these numbers, it does look like the community is a bit tax sensitive on the taxes, be it the perception of how the economy is doing, inflation, all those factors. Many people right now are, and I've seen this in other surveys, being less supportive right now of bond measures or parcel tax measures than maybe they were 2 or 3 years ago or pre-pandemic. So after some education, we asked them the same question as we did before with the benchmark question in hopes that that percentage will increase and rise as they become more educated with the different rates as well as what the money would be used for. And it did rise, but it only rose about 0.3%, and is still below the 2/3 threshold. And so it did not rise as much as we were hoping it would. Now, granted, there is a plus or minus margin of error in these surveys. Of this one is a 4.8%, so it could get above that. But historically, when we've conducted, I don't want to say several hundred surveys over the last probably 10 years, and surveys compared to the actual elections, very rarely has it come in above the number. And if it is, it's only usually been within a percentage point or two. 2/3 elections are somewhat difficult if you're not already above that number. So I'm just kind of putting that out there. So the next slide here, we understand that the Contra Costa Community College is considering also putting a measure on the ballot. And so we just kind of want to get the pulse for that. If they put that on there and we put the parcel tax on there, how would people vote? And 24% said they would just vote yes for Brentwood. 37.5% said they would vote yes for both of them, which brings you to roughly about 62% saying yes for the district once again. Questions? Kind of rattled off a lot of numbers and graphs and charts so far.
I have a couple questions, but are you still going through your presentation or no?
The next slide, the last slide is conclusion and recommendations. So if you'd like to ask, go for
I
it.
could wait.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up everything was spoken about, the district is very well liked by the voters, has very strong support and attitude towards the district, which is all positive things. There is a higher than average anti-tax ideology, though, in the community at this moment in time. And I don't know where it's been over the previous couple years, but at this time, that out of the gate, that 41% saying no is significantly higher than we typically see. Through education in this survey, voters increased a little bit, but not as much as we were hoping they would. Even though all the projects did test above the 2/3 that is required. And while it finally did test support at 48%, and that's kind of, I'm going to put that kind of back onto the board, is if that's enough for what you're looking to do with your projects and the needs of the district at that 48% as opposed to the $96. That was, I think, initially the question. And so our recommendation at this time is to actually not put it on the ballot in November and continue to work with local partners, your teachers' unions, the mayor's office, city council, chamber of commerce, your local businesses and organizations over the next probably 12 to 18 months and really help educate more the needs that the district has. And then, and say probably 2025 next year in 12, 18 months, go back to and do kind of another survey to see where you're at and see if that needle's moved. Because the positive, everybody loves the district from, well, 75%, which is enough for me to say everybody. But they're just a bit tax sensitive at this moment in time. And so, I think it would be better, it's our opinion, it'd be better to go back to the voters, say in a year or two, with the amount that you really need than try to go to the voters now with a lower number and not be able to meet all the needs that you're asking for. And so that is our recommendation and opinion. And honestly, that's kind of the best thing about these surveys is it's not really us telling you what to do or not to do. And it's not you folks telling the voters what to do or not to do. It's the voters telling us what they're willing to support and what they're not willing to support this time. And so whenever somebody asks, you can point and say, this is what we asked the public and this is what they said. So.
This is very helpful. Thank you. You may have mentioned, sorry.
Sorry about that. I was just saying this is very helpful. I really appreciate the data on this. So thank you for making this happen. Just curious, you may have mentioned on the beginning of your presentation, but can you speak to the modes of outreach for the survey?
So it's all telephones and landlines.
Okay. And was it, go ahead.
And it's illegal to call through these calling things through to cell phones.
Okay.
Even though it does happen from time to time, it's illegal and they can get fined. So
Good to know. Okay. And then languages, was it just English?
it was just English.
Okay. And then with regards to those that responded, a couple questions that came up. Do we have like the makeup of those survey respondents, like age,
We
et
do.
cetera?
We do. We have the whole voter file,
Okay.
which has personally way more than I like to have in there of myself.
Okay.
But it has, it has your name, it has your age, it has your address, it has your party affiliation.
So you're using the voter files, registration
This
files.
is- correct,
Perfect.
This is in the
And
voter file. So we can break that down any way that it's requested to be broken down.
got it. Okay. And so with the, I think I saw like 400 something respondents to the survey.
Correct.
You would be able to share like what the demographic makeup is of those that responded if we wanted to know.
Yes.
Okay.
We could say, 20% align with or registered Republicans and 30% are Democrats and 40%, did not state.
Okay.
Or, 70% of the people are under the age of 55. We can manipulate it
Kind of
however needed to
size.
be to get you whatever you'd like.
Thank you. And then one last question is, would you guys also be, I'm sure you guys would be able to, but it would be interesting to see like what region or what parts of Brentwood we had most of the respondents, or if it was like scattered around, if their attitudes were the same in one part of Brentwood versus another. I would be just curious to like look at the data a little bit more.
We could probably break it down by, I'm not certain how many zip codes the district covers.
Just one.
Just one? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how you could break that down into regions, other than trying to look up every address.
You could use the city council districts.
I think that I'd have to check to see if that information is on there. If it's down by district, it probably is. I would just have to figure out.
So I can work with ISOM too, Stephanie. So it sounds like if there's further demographic data that we can pull out that we can share with the board, then that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, to your point about if we wanted to do some work now and in the future, maybe go back and do another survey, I think we would need to do some intentional work if this is something that we would want to actually take seriously. And so I think having more information with the data would be helpful.
And that's a great question and great point to know which maybe demographic is being less supportive, or if it's just across the board.
Yeah.
Of the community. And if it is a specific demographic, then you are correct. That's where we would want to make sure that we can help educate. Say if it's the senior citizens and they're saying, hey, we don't want to do any taxes no matter what, helping them understand you wouldn't have to pay, right? If that clause is in there. And so, we can break that down and we'll work with Dana on getting you that results specifically. which areas. And for the most part, also, the surveys are, when they're conducted, they try to, get the younger, get the older, get the, the different parties, and to make it kind of more of a balanced survey, so they're hopefully getting a good representation, because they have all that information when they make the calls.
I had questions. You said that Trustee Geddes had a phone call for the survey on his cell phone, but he just said that most of the survey is through landline. So does that mean his landline could forward it to? I don't think the landline can forward it to a cell phone. So how would that?
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
So I can't speak to that individual specifically.
Yeah.
But I can speak to the voter file. I know the voter files have your phone number, and then they have the cell phone number. And I feel as we've gone along, more people have cell phones and less people have landlines. Sometimes people will just enter in their cell phone as their landline, as, oh, that's my phone, and don't indicate that it's their cell phone. And so sometimes the phone number will be in that phone number column. That shouldn't be over there and should be over in the cell phone, but they have no idea when they get the data file.
And I had a question. If you're surveying people with landlines, that means they're usually older voters, and so they're less likely to have a cell phone. But I would be curious to see what the breakdown is by household income. So, like from 25,000 to 50,000, how did they vote? From 51,000 to 99,000, how did they vote? Because to me, that's more telling.
Right. So two things. One, they don't have that information on the voter file of income. So
And you don't ask that in the survey.
No, we don't ask that in the survey.
I mean, personally, if somebody called me and started asking income questions, I'd be more apt to hang up on them and say, it's none of your business, but that's just me.
Okay, so you're really basing it from a voter file. You're not asking like, can you tell me your salary range or household income range? You don't ask that question.
Right.
Okay.
No, ma'am. We don't ask that at all. Probably for this gentleman's point here, we'd probably get less people answering. I probably wouldn't answer. But in your first comment, though, yes, typically people that respond to the surveys are slightly more conservative, because usually it's your older population that is a bit more conservative that still have landlines. However, all that being said, like I said, we've done these surveys probably 10, 15 years, and while things have changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years with regards to cell phones and landlines and things like that, so far the surveys have still been, with the exception of the pandemic timeframe when nothing worked correctly. They're still pretty consistent with voter turnout, and how voters vote is pretty consistent with the survey. I would say probably 90% of the time it's in that plus or minus margin of error. And so despite being still just calling landlines and being somewhat of a archaic kind of survey experience, they're still fairly, like I said, about 90% are within that plus or minus margin of error. And usually the ones that are not is because something happened. Like something happened on the board, something happened in the district, or somebody was like, I'm super against this, and ran an anti-campaign kind of thing. And so for the most part, even though it's kind of an older way of doing things, it's still very accurate from what we've seen.
All right, thank you.
But great question, though.
I actually have one comment and one question. Actually, I'm shocked that you were able to get 400 people to do a survey. Personally, absolutely shocked. So kudos to you guys. I'm sure you probably had to make 15 times that many people to get 400 people to answer your question. So, and then the second question is to you, Dr. Eaton. Is this something we're going to advertise? I mean, obviously we're on video, but I can't imagine in the summertime we have a large group listening that people didn't want to spend $98 a year. To me, that's appalling, but that's just my own personal feelings. And I think.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, I was going to say that I think as a board, we could decide the next steps. I do agree with the recommendation of starting education, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I think part of our challenge is to try to communicate something so complicated as the school district budget in a way that it resonates with people about how it impacts their quality of life here in Brentwood, how it impacts their home value, how it impacts the education of the community.
But I feel this report here is very concise.
Mhm.
It's very easy to read.
Yeah.
It's very easy to understand. And I guess, could we release, somehow say, here's what we did, and,
Yeah.
click on this to see the thing in the press or something like that. I mean, I think, this is educational in itself, the presentation,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think,
$98.
yeah. I think it's something that we definitely should consider how we put out there, right?
Right.
And what makes the best sense for us. It's definitely public information,
Right.
So we could have that, but I think it's definitely worthy of discussion as we go forward. Is
Okay.
what's going to be the best use of it, right?
Yeah.
And how do we? And I think to Stephanie and Tweet's point, like how do we learn from it so that when we're targeting the education, that we really make sure that we're at least helping people understand what they need to understand to feel comfortable making a decision.
And the only other question, actually, it's for you. 40% said no matter what, they wouldn't vote for it. But then if you go through your other graphs, it was 33%. Why is there a discrepancy there?
And that gets back to the education. I
Okay.
think out of the gate, most people are like, I don't want to pay any more taxes, right? I think everybody has, in the last couple of years, had to probably tighten their budget in certain areas for different things
Right.
in their own personal budget, right? And so, but as they're educated more, they're like, oh no, $98 isn't that bad, or $48 isn't that bad. I can support the local schools. And so that's the key is, that number went from 41% down to like 36% or so. If we're able to continue to educate
Right.
the public or those people that are not looking or saying that I didn't want to support, if you can get that down another 5%, say you get it down to 30%, then you're in a much better area
Right.
to hopefully go forward. And so it shows that education does work,
Right.
even just in the survey here. Just need more education to be done.
And then one more question, I'm sorry. At what point in the questionnaire or the survey, did they know how much it was? I mean, do you go out of the boat and say for $98 or is that, am I making myself?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So so we asked most of all the questions up to that point were prior to asking this question here.
Okay.
So we didn't give them any education about the parcel tax, how, and what it'd be used for, other than
Right.
that 75-word language right there saying parcel tax for $98 for these items.
Perfect.
And that's just kind of get a benchmark. And then we educate on the projects, and then we educate on different tax tolerances.
Perfect. Thank you.
And so, like I said, it moved, but not even 0.5%
Yeah.
moved. So some of the other numbers moved, but the main two numbers was the yes and likely yes. And it was only about 0.5%.
Well, nobody else.
I have a
just
couple
wanna
more
thank-
questions,
Okay,
but
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to thank them, and because I know this was just pretty much an overnight, we called you up and said, could you do it in 2 weeks type of thing. So kudos to you guys for doing the great job you did. And I imagine not too many people give you that kind of timeline that we gave you.
A
So
little tighter than normal, but
Thank you. So did all 400 complete the entirety of the survey?
yes.
That's great. So like roughly how long was that?
Did anyone did the survey by chance?
No? Okay, I'm just curious.
Usually you get one person. Usually I think they try to keep them fairly quick.
Okay,
So probably under 15 minutes.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
the agreement, it was about 15 minutes is what the agreement said
Okay.
that it would take.
yeah, because I would imagine having to read this statement, hearing it over the phone, it's easier to read it and digest what the education is versus I'm listening to some random person on the phone and trying to make a decision if I'm going to spend my money on something. So I'd be curious if the results would be the same if we were to have administered the survey in a different way, right? And so I think I heard was that we're by law unable to survey folks in the community via other methods besides a landline phone. Did I hear that right?
You said you are or are not?
Are we not? Does the law allow for us to survey other ways besides a landline phone?
You can survey however you'd like.
Really?
As far as I know, we have found this to be the most cost-effective
Okay.
and accurate way to do it, because you don't have to pay for people to be, on street corners or.
Yeah, I don't imagine that. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm thinking more like a text message. I think people have their mobile phone. I just didn't know if their modes of outreach could be like email, text message, et cetera, et cetera. But I do understand the cost effectiveness.
There are probably multiple other ways that could be done. We have found in our business that this is the most effective way to get a pulse. Like I said, like 90% of these fall within that plus or minus margin of error, and cost effective, because people don't want to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars
Right.
for
What you can find out for a fraction of the cost.
exactly,
Right?
exactly. And the main point is to get a pulse. Is this something we should move forward with or not? And really there's two different. It's kind of two components in preparing to do a bond measure or a partial tax measure. One is the survey to kind of catch a pulse that way. The other one is talking to those key people, like I said, the mayor, the teachers union, the chambers of commerce, maybe the Rotary Club,
Yeah.
different organizations, and the members in the community that are, the Johnson family, they've lived here for 5 generations, everybody knows them. Are they on board?
Yep.
And that influence down from that perspective. And so if both of those are kind of a match, then
there.
more often than not, the measure will be successful.
Okay. And then the last question I have is more for the district. Would we be able to do research on perhaps other districts who went through something similar, who had to do like an education campaign or outreach or whatever it was to be able to get over that threshold? I think it might be of good use to see what they did, what some education campaigns actually look like.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would do, and I'll talk with ISOM as well, because they've worked with other school districts that have had similar experiences, is to understand some of the strategies that they used, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
And
We actually have an advantage there too, because not too long ago, we just did something similar with Measure B and that whole group, so it's not like this is something foreign to get the troops all assembled again and say, hey, we're shooting for a year, 2 years, whatever it is. So.
Yeah, I do want to say though that the bar is pretty high. I don't know of anything in this area that's ever passed at a 2/3 margin. That's brought in money to an organization
Sure.
or a community. So it's a high bar going forward. So to Stephanie's point, it's really important to try to find every way that we can to try to get the word out so that people understand what the money would be used for.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm just stressing the $98, probably a little bit too much, but
Yeah.
$98. Come on, folks,
Okay. Any other questions for Brian?
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. We appreciate your time.
you bet.
And
Thank
thanks
you.
for making it out here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next we have 10.2, approval of Brentwood Union School District 2024-25 proposed budget.
Approved.
Yes, this came to the board on June 12th with discussion and information, and it's here for approval tonight.
I'll make a motion that we approve the BUSD 24-25 proposed budget on 10.2.
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, 10.3, approval of annual update, budget overview for parents and local control accountability plan.
Good evening, board. I think you'll like this because I'm going to actually address 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5. These are all state compliance items. You've approved similar reports in the past. The first one, 10.3, 10.3 is the new LCAP, including the annual update and budget overview. 10.4 is what's called the federal addendum. It is an addendum to the LCAP, and it is required by the state and the federal government in order to meet the needs of the federal government that aren't included in the LCAP. And then 10.5 is the dashboard local indicators, which is a report that addresses some of the state priority areas that are not included in 10.3. So that's what all three of those. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, they're up for approval and action.
There's no questions. I will make a motion that we approve 10.3, the annual budget overview of LCAP.
Can we add 10.4 and 10.5 to that?
No, you got to do it single.
Okay. So I'll second 10.3.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next, 10.4, approval of the LCAP federal addendum.
No questions. I'll make the motion. We approve the LCAP federal addendum.
All right, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next, 10.5, approval of report on dashboard local indicators.
Want to switch places, Stephanie?
Sure.
Go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to approve item number 10.5, the approval of report on dashboard level indicators.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and next, 10.7, approval resolution 2024-18.
This is an annual resolution that comes to the board every year when you adopt the budget, and it has to do with Prop 30 and Prop 55 because a part of our funding comes from those taxes.
Okay. Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve item number 10.7, the approval of resolution 2024-18.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, 10.8, approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Yeah, this is a annual notice that we bring to you and anticipating the need to hire teachers who are not fully credentialed or are currently in a program. This has happened more and more over the years, especially in special education. We always seek to hire credentialed teachers and those who have completed their program. But in anticipation, we're asking you to sign this so that we can continue to hire and fill positions.
If there's no questions, I will make a motion to approve item number 10.8, approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next, 10.9, approval of chief business official contract addendum.
Yeah, so the next three items you'll see 10.9, 10.10, and 10.11 are your three employees that are on contract. So Assistant Superintendent of HR, CBO, and myself. There's nothing different for these contracts other than you're extending them a year. So if you were to vote yes.
Any questions? All right, well then I'll make a motion to approve item number 10.9, the approval of chief business official contract addendum.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
10.10,
I'll make a
approval of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources contract addendum.
motion to approve item number 10.10. Approval of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources contract addendum.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
10.11, approval of superintendent contract addendum.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
You sure? No. I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 10.11, approval of superintendent contract addendum.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Board member comments, future agenda items.
I'm happy.
Love this. Great job.
Nothing? Okay. All right. The next regular board meeting will be held July 17th, 2024 at 6 PM. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Have a
Appreciate it.
signatures.